Hello there everyone, Matt here with virtualinstructor.com, and in this video we're going to take a look at creating a drawing of a cat using oil-based ballpoint pens. Now this is going to be a quick presentation of the entire drawing process, but if you want to follow along step by step, you can find this step-by-step drawing lesson series over at virtualinstructor.com. There we have a variety of drawing and painting courses on a variety of subject matter and media. We do weekly live lessons, which are all recorded and stored in our vault. You can go back and watch all of the live lessons we've ever done all the way back to 2012. And there are weekly critiques as part of the Members Minute. There's also a year-long curriculum for visual arts teachers. If you want to learn more about the program, you can click on the link in the description below, or you can scan the QR code on your screen right now. Also, if you want to just check out 3 of our course videos and ebooks for free, you can do so. There's a link in the description below that will put you on our mailing list, so I can send you lots of free art lessons and videos. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the entire process from start to finish. Here's a look at the pen that I am going to use for this drawing. This is a zebra pen, and these pens are oil-based ballpoint pens. This means that it's going to give us a little bit more versatility than a traditional ink pen. It's going to give us some more workability as well. These pens are pretty awesome. They fall in between a traditional pen and ink, like we would normally use, and actually a graphite pencil. Now, one of the things that makes this pen so unique is that we can put heavy pressure on the pen, as you see here, and create solid lines. Now, the ink is not as black as traditional ink. It is a little bit gray, but we can put less pressure on the pen and create a lighter line. So we don't have to rely on the thickness of the line so much to create darker values. We can put less pressure and use it more like a graphite pencil. So let's go ahead and start our sketch here, and I'm going to start with a graphite pencil. I'm using the edges of the picture plane to determine where the top of the ears are located. Once I've got a little bit of information on the surface of the paper, I can use the information that I put down to find the locations of other bits of information. So I'm basically building on the marks that I make. So once I have an idea of where the ears are located, I can go ahead and draw the shape for the face, and then use the shape of the face to find the other contours of the body of the cat. So you can see I'm drawing very light lines here and there as I make those comparisons. This is an excellent way to ensure that you get, first of all, the entire subject within the picture plane, but also ensure accuracy in your sketch without having to use a technique like the grid technique or a transfer method. So we're working from larger shapes, and now that I've got some of the larger shapes in place, I can start to determine where I'm seeing contrast and value. So I'm making little smaller shapes within the larger shape to indicate where the values get darker or lighter. And I can also use this information to find the location of the facial features, like the eyes and the nose and the mouth. So you can see here I'm drawing a couple of shapes for the eyes, and I know that those eyes are in the right location based on comparisons I've made with the ears and the edges of the shape of the head. Now we'll start drawing some of the details of the face, and that includes, again, areas of contrast, shapes of contrasting value that I see. I'll also start to create some indication of the texture. Basically what I'm doing here is just refining the edge of the contour to indicate more of a furry edge, of course, with our furry cat, and adding a few details in the ears. Now I can lightly erase any of the guidelines that I've used, and then we'll switch over to our ballpoint pen. I'm going to start with the eyes and work outward from there. The eyes are going to be the focal point of this composition. And you can see here as I'm adding the ink into the inside part of the eye, I can do so with a light touch, and the resulting look is more like what we see with a graphite pencil and less like what we see with a traditional pen and ink. So instead of relying on line, namely with hatching and cross-hatching to create some of the darker values, we can do so by just adjusting the amount of pressure that we put on the pen. Now we'll go ahead and start working on some of the texture here, and as we do so, we're going to broaden the range of value too. So in the darkest areas, of course, I'm going to put heavy pressure on the pen to create those dark values, but I'm also keeping in mind the directional strokes that I make here. Not only will the directional stroking define the texture, but it will also help to convey the illusion of form in the image as well. So I'm paying attention to the direction that the hair grows on the face and making sure that my strokes made with a pen are flowing in the same direction as the hair is growing. Now, of course, as we work, we need to pay attention to the areas where the value gets a little bit lighter and, of course, where the value gets a little bit darker. This is going to define the patterning that we see on the face. But not only that, the relationships of values, value is the darkness or lightness of color, those relationships of value are also going to define some of the features. You'll notice that the nose is not a clearly defined collection of lines. Instead, it is a collection of shapes of value. So we're going to pay attention to the shape of value that we see and try to replicate that in our drawing. And if we replicate it accurately, then the illusion will be created in our drawing. We'll continue patiently working down to the chin of the cat, and we'll make sure that we define the mouth through, again, contrasting values. We'll work our way out from the eyes and work our way up to the top of the head as we continue to define the bottom of the chin as well. So we are literally working our way out from the eyes. Now, as we back away from the art a little bit, you can see how the face is starting to be defined. We'll go ahead and work our way up to the ears, and the ears are mostly dark in value, but there are some lighter spots on the inside of the ear, so we'll pay attention to that, make sure that we leave some open spaces for that before going back in with a very light touch with the pen. We can see also that there is a light value right at the base of the ear, so we'll fill that in with a light touch using the pen. But we'll still keep in mind the directional stroking. So we'll resist the urge to start making horizontal strokes or something that goes against the direction of the hair growth. Very light up here on the top, but just to define the edge, we'll put a very light collection of strokes to indicate some of the texture up there while leaving that light area of value basically white, using the white of the paper there to create a strong highlight. We'll do the same on the second ear, again leaving some open spaces for some of those lighter hairs in there, and we'll define the edge here with a very light touch. Now we'll work our way down to the neck, working our way into the body, and again, we're going to apply directional strokes just like we did on the face. We're going to start with very light applications here, using the versatility of this pen to create some gray lines as we work our way down. Now, in this particular area, there is a transition. We see a very light section of value where the light source is originating from the left. So we're going to leave that space open for now and add marks primarily on the right side of the body as we view it. So we're going to make these values darker. And it's important, just like with you're working with a graphite pencil, we want to make sure that we don't go too dark too quickly. So we're going to start with lighter applications. And then as we get those applications in place, we can start putting more pressure on the pen, adding more marks to create some darker values. Of course, variety is important here as well. There are some areas where it's subtly darker, so we'll pay attention to that and make sure that we've got those subtle changes in value. Now, right along the edge where we see that light value, we still need to have an edge to the cat, so I'm going to use a few light strokes to define that. Then I'll go back and work on that transition from that lighter shape to the medium dark shape that we see on the body. Now you'll notice that this pen does produce small little splotches of ink. This is one of the drawbacks to using this oil-based pen. Sometimes those little splotches just show up out of nowhere, and there's not really a good way to deal with that, or one that I haven't found. Some people have suggested that you can quickly smudge it away if you can catch it quickly, because the oil-based pen does dry just slightly slower than traditional ink. Now, we notice also that there is a section of lighter value right in the middle of the body where the rear leg wraps around the body. So we'll pay attention to that location and make sure that those values are a little bit lighter than the darker values above it. These subtle changes in value are easy to overlook, but they really make a huge difference in creating the illusion of form in any drawing that you create, not just this drawing of a cat. So it's important to pay attention to those subtle changes in value. Now, I've said value quite a bit in this video already, and that should be an indication to you just how important value is. Again, value is the darkness or lightness of color. Value tells us about the form of the subject, the light within the scene, the intensity of the light, and it also is used to create the illusion of texture. So value, in my opinion, is the most important of the 7 elements of art. And if you're working on your drawing skills, then value is one of those things that you need to repeatedly practice observing values, trying to match values, and of course, including them in your drawings. We want to have a full range of value in every drawing that we create. That means we want to have the darkest darks, the lightest lights, and we want to have the ample amount of contrast in order to communicate the subject that we're working on to our viewer. Now, it also should go without saying, but I'll make sure that I point this out again and again in every one of my videos. It's important to work very slowly and deliberately. Now, for some people, this can be very difficult to be patient and work slowly. And if you start feeling the urge to speed up in a drawing, which will just lead to mistakes, then it's advised to just take a break. Step back from your art, take a 5 to 10 minute break, refresh your brain, maybe even take a longer break than that so that you can go back to your artwork and work slowly and deliberately. Now, this part of the process, as I was working down the back of the body of the cat, of course, was very time consuming and a very slow process. So I had to myself resist the temptation to try to speed up and work a little bit quicker. So you want to just work slowly. You want to be deliberate about your mark making and be patient, of course. Now, you'll also notice that periodically I'll go back to some of the other sections that we've already addressed and make some of the values a little bit darker. Again, that goes back to what I said earlier about we want to make sure that our values are lighter than they need to be, just like in a graphite drawing, before going back and making them darker. This will ensure that we don't go too dark too quickly with our value application. Now, as we work down the back of the body of the cat, again, there are subtle transitions, subtle sections of value change. And again, this is important not only to create the illusion of texture, but also the illusion of form. We can see that there is a little bit of value change in the back of the body. It's a little bit darker at the top, then it gets a little bit lighter, and then it gets darker again, and then lighter again at the bottom. So we want to pay special attention to this because this will help us to create a convincing and realistic image. Now, at this point, you can really see all those little splotchy areas that are produced by the pen. It's not that big of a deal, but it may be something that bothers you a little bit working with this pen. But for me, it's something that I can easily overlook, and it's not that big of a deal. It's a trade-off, basically, for the versatility of this pen, allowing us to create grays without relying too much on hatching and cross-hatching. Now, there is some directional stroke changes that happen here as we work down the body. You can see that the directional strokes that are made on the left center part of the body are more horizontal, actually, and then they become more vertical as we work our way across to the right. It's also important when you're drawing hair or fur to have some randomness associated with it. So make sure that all of your strokes aren't going in the exact same direction. You can add some variety there, and that reflects more of what we see in reality for drawing hair and texture like we see on the body of the cat. You'll notice as I work down, I'm going back into some of the other sections, making some of the darker areas a little bit darker. And that is all due to the fact that value is relative. So we understand value based on the relationships of the values around it. So we can make an area look darker by adding lighter values next to it. So once we get some of the tones and values in place, we have a better understanding of the values that we've already applied to the surface. And you'll find that you need to go back and make adjustments to areas that you've already addressed just because you've put more values on the surface. All right, here again, we'll define the edge where that light section of the body is picking up most of the light. But since we're not going to have a background here, we're going to just define the edge with a few strokes. And again, we'll go back and gently just brush the pen over the surface to create some lighter gray. So again, this is all due to this particular pen. We can't do this with traditional pen and ink, but we can with this oil-based ballpoint pen. So we're just going back over the top with a light touch, creating some more grays, more variety in the tone and value. And once we're fairly satisfied with the values that we have in the body of the cat, we can work our way down to the tail. And this is where we're seeing some dark values again. I'm going to start on the side that is the lighter side of the tail that's closest to the light source and define a few strokes here before going back to the right side. And here we can apply heavy pressure. We're still, of course, considering our directional stroking here. We want to make sure the strokes are flowing in the same direction as the hair is growing. And we're going to leave some little lighter specks open here. We don't want a solid black application. Sometimes when you have a solid black section in a drawing, it can make that area look flat. So we want to make it dark enough so that the value is communicated, but we don't want to make it solid black so that it looks flat. So you can see I'm going back here again along the back edge to make values even darker. Since we've got more value in place, we've got more information on the surface to make comparisons. And then we'll drop a little cast shadow behind the cat as well to make sure that it looks like it's grounded on a surface. And here you can see I'm using very light strokes. These are mostly horizontal, but I'll go back with some diagonal strokes to add a little bit more variety. Then with a very light touch, we'll add a few indications of some stray hairs and some whiskers. You can see I also am going back and refining a few areas a little bit further. Now for this drawing, I decided to use a gel pen to try to pull out some of the whiskers. I don't typically do that, but for this drawing, I decided that a little bit more information on the whiskers would be helpful. And then once the ink is dry, you can use a kneaded eraser to remove any remaining graphite lines to complete the ballpoint pen drawing of a cat. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you were able to pick up a couple of things here and there. So there you have it, the entire process of creating a drawing of a cat from start to finish. Now keep in mind, this was a time-lapse video, and the entire process actually took me about 4.5 or 5 hours to complete the drawing. So don't let the quick presentation fool you. In your own drawings and paintings, you need to work slowly and take your time. Now, if you like this video, make sure that you give it a like. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear what you think. And again, thanks again for watching this video. And as always, I wish you all the very best in your artistic success.